If you've been following along with GDPR, you probably know that you should be hosting your Google fonts locally instead of using them from a Google CDN server. There are a ton of plugins on the WordPress repository that help with this, but most of them are either geared towards specific page builders or they attempt to do everything automatically without giving you any control. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can host those files locally on a WordPress site using two different methods. First, we'll do it manually using a custom WordPress theme. Then I'll demonstrate a new plugin called Yabe Webfont, which greatly simplifies the process regardless of whether you're using a page builder or coding your theme by hand. For the custom theme, I'm going to demonstrate using the Pinegrow web editor, but this video is going to be just as relevant if you code your themes by hand or use other similar tools. Let's start by doing this manually so that you can see everything that goes into it. The first thing that we need to do is figure out what file that we want to use. I'm going to come to Google Fonts, and I'm going to use Baskerville. I'll just type in Baskerville, and I want to check out my Libre Baskerville font. I'll say Download Family. And once I have it downloaded and extracted, you can see what we end up with. It's basically a set of TrueType fonts. These aren't very useful for the web because we actually want WOFF2 fonts. So to get those, we need to go to a site that's going to convert TrueType fonts over to web fonts for us. Font Squirrel is a very popular site, very easy to use, and it works very well. This can handle almost any type of TrueType font, but if we're just talking about Google Fonts, I'm going to show you another site that I think makes it one step easier. And that's this Google Webfont Helper site. Here we don't need to worry about downloading the Google font first, uploading it, re-downloading the converted files, all those things. We can just come straight to this site and ask for the thing that we want. So I'll start searching for Baskerville, and I've got my Libre Baskerville font. It tells me a little bit about the font up here. It gives me some previews, and I can select just which styles that I want. So I want to use regular italic and 700. It creates the CSS file for me. And then best of all, it gives me a download file. Once I've downloaded and extracted those fonts, you'll see that I've got a number of different formats in here. I've got TrueType fonts, I have web fonts, and I have WOFF2 fonts, as well as SVGs and EOTs. I want to make sure that we're including these with our theme, so I'm just going to select them and copy them, and then I'll go to our project folder. I like to include them inside of the assets folder in a subfolder called fonts. You'll see that we already have images, and we'll create one for fonts. And then I'll just paste those files right in here. Now I'll come back to this page because we're going to need all this CSS. So I want to make sure that we copy this. And the rest of the work that we do is going to be inside Pinegrow. Now before I forget, I want to take all that CSS that we copied and add it to another CSS file. So if I expand my assets folder, you'll see that we only have images. And in order to see the fonts folder that we created before, we're going to do reload project. Now we see that we have assets fonts. I'm going to come in here and in my fonts folder, I'm just going to right click and say create new file. And I'm going to call this fonts.css. We're going to edit that code and paste in what we grabbed from the website. The only other thing that we're going to do in here is that we need to change the source URL because right now it's looking for a different directory than what we have. We actually want to tell it that it's going to be in the same directory. So we'll just do a find and replace. And I'm going to find .fonts / and we're just going to replace that with /. And that leaves us with ./ and the name of the font. Now we can collapse the assets folder again. And I want to take a look at our theme.css file. So let's open that in the editor. And we'll expand this so we can see a little bit more. Inside this file, we've got some normalized rules at the top, variables for all of our colors, and some basic typography styling. I'll close this out, and now we'll come over to the design panel, and I want you to see that for our regular text, we're using Arial with a fallback of Helvetica and sans serif, and for headings, we're using Georgia with a fallback of the default system serif. I want to change our headings to use that Libre Baskerville font that we just downloaded. So we'll click on Manage Fonts, and here we have a list of fonts that Pinegrow's predefined. Now in here, we're going to say Add Font, and we do not want to choose Google Fonts because again, this is going to load it from the Google CDN. Instead, we want to make sure that we're choosing Local Web Font because these are the ones that we downloaded earlier. So let's select that. I'll click on the folder and we're going to find that CSS file that we created earlier, the fonts.css file. We'll select it and add. And now we can see that it's added Libre Baskerville to our list as a local font with 2 different weights. And we can close this. And now if I want to, I can change my headings from Georgia with a fallback of serif to that Libre Baskerville. And you can see as soon as I changed it here, it changed it on the site. Because what it did is it edited our theme.css file to import the fonts.css and then updated the rule for all of our headings to say that font family is Libre Baskerville. Now the only other thing that we need to do here is to tell Pinegrow to make sure that it exports all those font files along with our theme. So again, we will expand assets, and we're just going to right click on fonts and make sure that this is set to yes. And then we'll say WordPress, export theme. And now on our site, when we go to visit it, we can inspect. And you'll see that it's still saying Georgia serif. So let's do a refresh. And now it's showing up as font family Libre Baskerville. And it's also changed here on the page. Just to double check that it's doing everything the way that we want, we'll come over to sources, expand WP content, and we can see our font CSS file is loading, as well as the Libre Baskerville font. Most of the steps that I went through just now apply to both the WordPress desktop version as well as the WordPress plugin, with one exception. With the WordPress plugin, we need to either manually upload the fonts to our WP Uploads directory, or we need to include them in the media library. Because WordPress has some things in place that make adding them to the media library a little bit more difficult, I like creating a directory right off of WP Uploads and putting the fonts in there. That also keeps us from having to worry about all those year, month, and day folders inside of WP Uploads. If you do want to go the plugin route, I would highly recommend checking out Yabe Webfont. This is a relatively new plugin and does a great job of downloading, converting, and storing the font files, especially for Google Fonts, and then handing you the CSS that you can either use directly or integrating with your page builder of choice. Now let's do that same thing with Yabe Webfonts. Here I have a sample site loaded with the Pinegrow WordPress plugin and Yabe Webfont loaded. I'm going to come into the Yabe Webfont settings, and you'll see that you've got some basic settings here for caching CSS, preloading things, hiding fonts from the media library, etc. If you want to load Adobe fonts, you can use your project ID here. Otherwise, come on over to the Fonts tab, and you've got a very simple interface for adding new fonts. If I have custom fonts that I've downloaded from the web, I can use Add New. If I want to use Google Fonts, I can just click this Import Google Fonts button. And here I'm going to choose a very obvious font so that we can see a difference. I'll choose this handwriting font. I've got lots of options here. I can choose different font display options. I can choose the selectors that I want to apply it to, and I can even choose fallback fonts. I can select my variants, and if it's a variable font, I can select that here as well. What I really like about this plugin is right down here, we see the CSS preview. If I'm creating a theme by hand or using the Pinegrow desktop application, this is where I would grab the CSS code to put it in. In this case, though, we're using the Pinegrow WordPress plugin, so we're going to use their direct integration. All I'm going to do now is hit the Save button. And when we come back to the main font screen, we can see that we have it loaded. Hovering over our font shows us the variable for that font family, and we see a preview. If we take a look at our media library, you can see that it's automatically downloaded, converted, and imported the font for us. Without doing anything else, I can come straight here into the Gutenberg editor, select some text, enable the font family, and choose the font that we just installed. Let's save and update that and view the page. So we can see that it's working very well right out of the box. Of course, we haven't done anything to update the theme, so it's only going to show where we've manually changed it inside Gutenberg. Let's go into our Pinegrow application and change it there. I'll open up our project file. And now if I come over to the design panel, I can change either the default regular text font or my headings font. In this case, I'm going to change our headings font from Georgia Serif, and we can see that it's already imported the font from Yabe right here. And I can just change that over. We can see it immediately in the preview window. If I just want to do one or two areas, I can select it and come over to our CSS design panel and change it there as well. Let's save this. We're going to export the theme. Now we'll visit the site. And you can see that all of our headlines have been updated with this horrible handwriting font, and our copyright line has been updated with it. Again, let's do an inspect just to show that it's pulling from the right place. And we'll switch over to sources, and you can see that WP content uploads. Here's our Google font. When we look at the CSS, let's take a look at it for one of these. We can see that the font family is this Gegu font. So that's it. It was a lot simpler than doing it the other way. And if you don't mind having a plugin loaded, Yabe Webfonts really is the way to go in my opinion. As always, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe or leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.